What's up everyone? If you followed this channel for a while, you will know I am a huge fan of Final Fantasy XIV. It is my favourite MMORPG. I've played it almost every day over the last year and made some incredible friends in that game. I think I love almost every part of the game, and I think it excels at most areas better than its competitors. It has one of the best stories of any MMO, one of the best healthy endgame gearing progressions that doesn't waste your time, some of the best casual content I've ever seen, like housing and glam and all these other things. So trust me when I say this video comes from a place of care rather than criticism. But there is one system that sits behind everything else in the game that I think is a huge problem. And rather than just make a video slamming the system, I want to create something a little more constructive that hopefully aims to find improvements or areas where this can learn to grow. I want to talk about the problems with the Glamour system in Final Fantasy XIV, but then share what other MMORPGs are doing differently that maybe Final Fantasy could learn from or adapt into their own game. A lot of Final Fantasy players, this was their first ever and only MMO, so whenever this topic comes up, they say, oh, spaghetti code, or it's better than it used to be, we've got 50 extra Glamour slots now, and I'm sure it is better than it was. But I just wanted to share how other MMORPGs handle their Glamour system and why players like myself from World of Warcraft find it so punishing, and more importantly, where it could use a little more development. So let's get straight into this. The Glamour system in Final Fantasy XIV. I'll do a quick summary for any non-Final Fantasy players. If you come from a different MMORPG, it might be called the Wardrobe, or the Outfit Station, or the Transmog system. But basically the Glamour system is how outfits and equipment are handled for pure fashion purposes. Maybe your character has an iconic outfit that you wear everywhere, maybe you've been grinding a relic for months and you want to equip that all the time, or you just want to change your head into a giant chocobo helmet. That all fits under the Glamour system. It's how anything is handled for replacing the look of one item to another. You can go into an inn and have a Glamour box. You put in around 400 items and then create Glamour plates, which are preset builds of those items. As of patch 6.1, you can have a total of 20 Glamour plates and 400 item slots. So 20 preset outfits that you can switch into out in the world. And that's the system in a nutshell. I'll add in that also dyes can be added, but they're manual, so you go buy a dye, you use it on a piece of equipment, and then it's gone. But that can be on the plate permanently. So you want to make an all black outfit, you use all black dyes, and then that saves on the plate permanently. So as a long-term MMORPG player, I want to talk about why the system in Final Fantasy can be so problematic for new players coming from other MMORPGs. First off, the item limit. 400 items feels wild to me. Just to give some context for why this feels like such an issue, your character in Final Fantasy XIV can take on any job. So a lot of players, myself included, will unlock every single job. Some people will level every single job to max level. I'm working on it myself. And if you was to say, take one set of gear like the level 50 job gear or the level 89 gear you get for finishing the MSQ, some sort of iconic job gear that's good on pretty much most classes, there's 20 jobs in Final Fantasy XIV. So if you were to say a helmet, a top, bottom, legs, feet, and a weapon, that's 6 items. So if you wanted to get the level 89 gear of every class and save that, that's 120 items locked in your Glamour dresser. Over a quarter of your Glamour dresser is now gone, taken by this one type of item from this one part of the game. And I find that such a real problem. This is just an extreme, but there's tens of thousands of items in this game, and you have to pick and choose what you value most and what you don't and you want to lose. There's hundreds of purely casual items too that can easily fill half the Glamour dresser. I'm sure that 100 to 200 of the items in my Glamour dresser are just casual items, glam items, level 1 items that are just for cool looks like shirts and trousers and funny stuff. So either you keep all the items on your retainers or you sell it and rebuy it when you need it. I think the reason this feels so punishing coming from World of Warcraft is I play an Astrologian, which is my main, and I have like 5 Ast glams that I use all the time. And then I have like 8 casual glams. That leaves less than 10 glam plates for all other 20 classes. And it really impacts the completionism content as well. I really want to go back and collect every single Astrologian globe in the game, just because I think it would be a fun thing to tick off. And I think it'd be cool to say I own every single one and be able to switch to any of those whenever I want to in a glam plate. But I can't. Well, I can, but it's so punishing. Let's say I go and collect every single Astro Globe, every relic, dungeon, PvP reward, every weapon that an Astro can use. On the Eorzea database, it shows that as over 250 weapons. What do I do with them? Fill half my glam dresser? Fill a whole retainer's inventory? I don't even know. There's a couple of really cool sets I want from dungeons. I want to farm the dungeon. collect every single piece, but what do I do with it? I can't be bothered to move 6 things out of my dresser and remove a glam plate. It's just extra work that doesn't feel nice. I got the bone wicker helm the other day drop. I was on stream and the bone wicker helm dropped from a dungeon or wherever it was, and I just discarded it. I handed it into my grand company and everyone was freaking out and saying, that's such a cool item, you can make so many cool glams. And I considered it. I was like, oh, I could make some good stuff for my summoner. And I just thought the effort of going to my glam dresser, finding the thing I want to get rid of, finding stuff that's probably on my retainer to make that outfit, it just felt like so much effort. I just handed it in for company seals. I just couldn't bother to deal with it. And it doesn't feel good when you're at endgame and you're between patches and you just want to do casual completionism stuff. It feels like a real chain around you, just tying you down and making everything else feel that little bit more difficult. And I know there's people out there with that same frustration. So let's talk about how the other big MMORPGs do it and a potential way forward. This will hopefully give players insight into our frustration and see how good it can be in other MMOs. I've not played every single MMORPG and I don't have footage for them all, so forgive me, this is only going to include a couple, the ones I'm the most comfortable and familiar with. But if you've played a different one and there's a different system, maybe it's better or worse, I'd love to hear in the comments how it works. So let's talk first about the one I know the most, the game I played for 15 years. I wouldn't say it's the gold standard of Glamour, but it's a million times better than Final Fantasy XIV, and that's World of Warcraft. I think Final Fantasy is a better game in every way, but World of Warcraft has it down. So much better on the Transmog system. Transmog is their word for Glamour, and how it works is every single item you ever own gets assigned to your character and goes into the transmogrification system as something you have then owned. So you could be in a dungeon and loot an epic, amazing sword with glowing fire and electric, and then get that item and just delete it. You just throw it away as soon as you pick it up. But because you've owned that item, that is forever on your account. No matter what happens, you can find that sword in the transmog system and take its glamour for a small gold cost. That's like in-game currency. It's just like gil. And that it's effortless. And the way it improves the game so much is you're incentivized to farm items. It gives you hundreds to thousands of items to grind for. It's completionism content. Say there's 300 swords in the game and you own 200 of them. I would log in and say, oh, I'm going to go grind the 201st sword. Where's it from? Oh, this dungeon. Let's go get it. It's giving you a reason to go and farm all the old content. What do you do with the sword? Who cares? Delete it, throw it, vendor it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do with it because the item doesn't matter. It's just the fact you've owned it gets put into this system. And on top of this, any full sets you obtain also get filtered into sets in a sets category, showing that you've completed everything. So say you go into a raid and you farm this raid every single week or every day or however, whatever the lockout is on the raid, you go in there all the time and you're trying to farm it for items and you manage to fill out the full set. That goes in and shows you on a character, the full set is owned and it's ticked off and it's like 7 out of 8 or whatever it is. And it shows that you've completed it. It's something to work towards. And it also gives you freedom to make outfits. If you want to make a fiery demon lord outfit in WoW, I go through my 500 swords, axes and spears, find one that's got fire on, and then I go through my 500 outfits looking for something fiery to make out of it. And I have thousands of items searchable in a window to make the set. I pay a small gold fee. Maybe the only thing I don't have is fiery boots. I can have a look around at unobtained items, fiery boots, go to that dungeon and get them. And then I've got the full outfit. And done. If this was Final Fantasy XIV, I have no clue what items are in the game because there's no searchable thing like this. I'd rummage through my limited 400 item glam dresser, which is mostly just casual items and astro globes, and then I'd scroll through 5 pages of my retainer, probably get fed up of moving stuff around. Maybe I've got to go to the market board and rebuy an outfit I sold to make room, and then delete a plate to make room for it. And I'll be honest, I just wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother. I'd probably get to my glamour dresser, realize it was too much effort, and just leave because it doesn't feel enjoyable. It feels like a chore, and it feels like you're being punished for wanting to get more items. I'm also going to touch on Guild Wars 2 because it's a game I'm recently started playing, and I think they do maybe an even better job than World of Warcraft. They have the same system as Transmog, but it's called the Wardrobe. Any item you get goes into the wardrobe for use at a later date. Anything can be switched and changed for cosmetic reasons, but at a cost. The one thing they do here, which I think is incredible, is the dye system. So there's tons of dyes in the game, and once you unlock a dye, that dye is then permanent. So you can freely color any item piece and individually any item piece on your gear. So say a chest piece, you can color the chest, the lapels, and then any accessories on that armor. So 3 different colors. So I think that's a really good way of handling dye. And then if you want to switch from, say, a robe to a different chest piece, and you've set everything as gold and black, that new chest piece becomes gold and black too at no extra cost, which I think is fantastic because it lets you hide and reward dyes throughout the game. So say there's a really rare black dye or gold dye or glowing red dye, they would be locked in hard content or difficult parts of the game as a really good reward. And once you get like a glowing gold dye, it's like unlocking a gold skin in Call of Duty. It's a sign that you've done a hard piece of content. And I think it's a really good way to do it. The only other thing I'll touch on is Elder Scrolls Online. I played this a lot last year. Well, I played it in 2001 actually, and it's largely similar to Guild Wars 2, a dye station, an outfitting station, and it's handled the same as the other 2 MMOs I've just mentioned. There's a searchable system for your outfits and how you can change them, and there's quite a lot of freedom to create. There's a few extra things here that they do that isn't quite the Glamour style system, so I won't touch on that, but generally everything else is kind of the same. There's a few little more restrictions, I'd say, in Elder Scrolls rather than Guild Wars, but it's largely the same. So hopefully that helps understand that the other big MMORPGs are on the same page. They kind of have the same idea and approach, and they kind of have it locked down. And coming from World of Warcraft, it's the one thing that people don't complain about. The Transmog system is just nice. If anything, you think of improvements for it, but it's just something that you can't imagine not having. So being in Final Fantasy, it's just so... I keep using the word punishing because it feels rough. So how realistically can we see Final Fantasy improve going forward? I understand spaghetti code. I'm not a coder, but every single time this comes up, long-time veterans of Final Fantasy just scream spaghetti code. And I guess from before ARR, when this was all set up, they can't rework the whole system, which is why it takes them like 3 years to add a few extra glam slots. But there's still a lot of quality of life changes I think they can make. They recently added the outfit viewer where you can view cash shop items in game, which I mean, I know a lot of people like this. I found it a little infuriating that they used this to show off cash shop items when what I really wanted was a compendium of all items in the game. I think they should use this system as an encyclopedia of stuff in the game. Dungeons, trials, raids, open world content, class content, all these different things, side quest content. And you can just find every single piece of gear, every single piece of armor, and you can just search it and find where it's from and just tick it off. Maybe you can't keep the item, but tick it off to say you've got it. And then once you've got it and you've got a green tick against it, maybe you go to the Calamity Salvager and buy it back when you need it. It's not a great system. You still have to deal with the shitty glamour dresser, but it feels like a way where you can track what you've got and say, I can say I've unlocked every Astro weapon. Look, I've got 100%. I don't have all the items, and if I need to make a glam, I've got to go to the salvager and get them back that way. But I know what I've got and what I don't, and I think that would be a very patched up way of kind of dealing with it. Another simple way I could think of doing it is if you let your glamour plates interact with your retainers. So say you've got 100 swords on a retainer. Let me access those 100 swords when I'm making a glam plate. Why not, when you go to make a glam plate, cycle through anything that your character owns and can access. So anything that's on your retainers. It's a pretty weird way to do it, but I feel like it would at least be a way to do it. Maybe when you go to make a glam plate, the system runs a check. Does the player own the item? If yes, it becomes an option in your glam plate system and it just shows you on retainer 2. So you go get it. I don't know. They're the 2 things I could think of making it, because I feel like reworking the whole system and giving us a transmog style system just isn't possible. Another thing, the dye system that in the other 2 MMOs I've mentioned is much nicer, but I think that ship has sailed. I think we're past being able to change that in Final Fantasy, and I want to keep this as realistic as possible. You can go on the market board and buy every single color in existence, so I think that's hard to revert, and a big rework would be cool. Like remove them and like they do with belts and make them unlockable, bind on account, but I don't see it coming forward. Another thing that I would say would be a potential upgrade here is the glamour plates. Just a lot of MMOs do have slot limitations, but Final Fantasy having 20 classes, 20 jobs, on one class, on one character, it feels more punishing. Like if you go on Elder Scrolls and you make a big tanky warrior, you just need to worry about your big tanky warrior items. If you're playing World of Warcraft and you make a wizard, a mage, you just got to worry about your cloth items and your staffs. But on Final Fantasy, we are running with 20 jobs at all times, and we switch around. You know, you want to switch to a healer, a tank, a ranged, a melee, and I play all the healers. I like them all, so I want a glam plate for them all, but it's just, it doesn't feel possible. Maybe, I think a good improvement would be when you switch to a character, have 2 to 3 plates for that character. So let's say you change from Astro to White Mage, you go to your glamour plates and you have 3 White Mage glamour plates there. And then maybe after that, there's like 5 universal plates that you can put casual items on. So it's just 5 that never change, and then 3 that switch with every character you switch to. I think that would make it so nice that you can just have a couple of glams for every class, rather than, I don't know, if you want to use casual glams, you ain't going to have one for every job, and that's just something you got to live with. Most importantly, I just want to say, I think glam in Final Fantasy XIV is the best of any MMO. I think this is the best looking, the coolest, and just the most visually satisfying glamour system in the game. But boy, is it the worst handled. So I just wanted to make this a quick video to talk about, draw attention to it, think of some possible ways to improve it, and share how the other MMOs are doing it for people that have never played it. More importantly than my rambling video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. Do you love the system and don't want it to change? Maybe you can't even fill your glam dresser because you only play one class, or maybe you play a different MMO that I haven't played and it has a different system that you want to mention. I'd love to hear, or maybe you have an idea for improvement. Just let me know in the comments. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about and really close to, and it's something I think about almost every time I log in because it underpins everything else you do in the game. So yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm excited to hear what you all think, but that's it for this video. Take care everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one.